welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. I'm here with Susan.
Hello, Guthrie.
Hello. And we also have two wonderful guests with us today.
We have two guests. Guthrie, I think this is the first time we've ever had two guests at a time, isn't it?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so we have, I'll introduce, we have Andy Welfle. Did I pronounce that right, Andy?
You did.
Hey. And we have Michael Metz.
Hello.
Hi, Michael.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so we have to have them both talk so that we can recognize who's talking as we go along. So let's do that again. Andy, let's hear your voice.
This is my voice. If you want me to, I can put on an accent. Just a super fake accent.
And Michael, your voice again?
Hey, this is Michael.
All right. They do sound different.
Yeah.
So Andy and Michael have written a book that I think just recently came out. Is that correct?
It officially comes out on the 14th, at least the printed edition.
So I got to read the early advance thing, which is cool. And it's called Writing is Designing. And it's a really interesting book. I got to tell you, I read a lot of books, or I try reading a lot of books. I don't always get through them because they're not always so interesting. But I really liked your book, so we're definitely going to have to talk about the book as we go on. So this is the first time we've ever talked, except for the 2 minutes before we started recording. So I don't know you guys. Where are you located?
This is Andy. I'm in San Francisco.
Okay.
And,
Michael, where?
Yeah, I'm located just outside Chicago.
Oh, you are?
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Two time zones apart. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm in Chicago.
Oh, okay. Neat.
If you listen closely, you'll be able to hear the rattling of an L train as it shakes my building.
Which line?
It's the red, brown, purple.
Oh, nice.
All three.
A lot of trains.
There you go.
The quad track.
Well, if you listen closely to this, you can hear the rattling of the earthquakes as it drops San Francisco into the ocean. So,
do you have one going on?
Well, luckily not right now, but you never know.
All right. So what I'd like. I have some questions about some stuff in the book, so I definitely want to talk about that. But before we get into that, I guess tell me. I mean, the book is obviously all about writing, but it's also then about the intersection between, copy and words and writing and what I think of as, user experience design. And so I'm a little curious about your backgrounds. Are you, would you, if you had to put yourself into a box, would you say, oh yeah, I'm a UX person that is, interested in the impact of the copy and the content? Or would you say I'm definitely, a content writer person who became interested in UX? Like, what's your background in both of those areas?
Well, I think our stories are both different, but this is Michael, and my journey, at least my career journey, was a bit all over the place. I was always, even after college. In college, I studied visual storytelling. My goal was to be a photojournalist. But when I graduated, there weren't a lot of photojournalism jobs available. The market was actually rapidly shrinking, a lot of newspapers closing. So my first job in my field, after I got rejected by places like Dunkin' Donuts and Caribou Coffee, was at a nonprofit in just outside the Indianapolis area, and I worked remotely with that team. And they wanted initially someone to help them create a lot of content for their website. So they knew I had writing skills, they knew I had photography skills, and they wanted someone to help them create a lot of new content. And once I started working with them, I realized that the people in their audience didn't need more content. They needed the content that was there to be better and more effective. And so I just started reading UX books and content strategy books. The first book I read was Content Strategy for the Web by Christina Halverson. And
I was just had just pulled that off of my bookshelf last night. I was looking at it again, and because that's been around for a while.
Yeah, it has, and it was absolutely transformative and led me in the right direction. And so I just applied a lot of what I was learning and what I was reading. And it was a nonprofit, so they couldn't really give me money or anything, but they could give me a title, and they could give me the opportunity to practice what I was learning. And so that was great. And I just started sort of being a UX team of one in that organization. And then I wanted to focus on UX. I knew that I really liked it. And so I went and got a job at a software company. And so I think I've always been a UX person, but because my focus has been on writing, sometimes I felt like the UX world didn't want that as part of what they were looking for. Like a lot of the jobs in Chicago were specifically looking for someone to make wireframes or someone to make prototypes, right? They were seeing it as inherently visual. And I was seeing that words were so important for a good experience. So I've had a lot of different titles: UX designer, UX writer, content strategist, but I've always felt like a UX person who uses words and language primarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mine has taken kind of a similar path, but I think we approach it a little bit differently. I also went to school for journalism, and I really, really, really wanted to be a reporter. And yeah, around that same time, after I graduated, there was just no journalism jobs. And I also went to a nonprofit, but mine was like a small arts nonprofit where I did a lot of marketing. And that was around 2007, 2008 when social media was starting to become a tool that you can use for marketing. Twitter started becoming a thing, Facebook pages were a thing, and I started really digging into that, like social media marketing for nonprofits. I really enjoyed it. I kind of after my stint at that nonprofit, I went to go work at an agency, kind of intending to be like a social media strategist, teaching the web development, like the web clients that we would have to, like how to use social media to further their cause. And I really realized I liked the kind of strategy and communications portion of it much more than I liked the kind of marketing and promotion aspect of it. And I really kind of dug in there. And first content strategy book I read was The Elements of Content Strategy by Aaron Kassane. It's a really great A Book Apart book. And it's now free. It's available for free now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
they open sourced it. So that's a really fantastic book. Quickly after I read Christina's book, and my boss and I were both like, I think we can sell this. So I became kind of a UX content strategist involved in web development. So I did a lot of like information architecture and content modeling and kind of making sure we were building the back end, like the back end of the CMSs in a way that was logical and made sense for the clients to use. Really enjoyed doing that. That was in northeastern Indiana, where I grew up. And after a few years of that, I really wanted to try to like find a bigger market. I met a guy named Jonathan Coleman, who at the time was a content strategist at Facebook, and he suggested I come work there. So I worked at Facebook for a few years, and I have since left and now have a small team of UX content strategists and UX writers at Adobe in our big product design team. So yeah.
So how did you guys meet each other?
Our eyes locked across the room.
The violin started playing. Yeah.
It was kind of like that. Andy was in a workshop that I was teaching with Scott Kuby at Midwest UX, and this was the day before he was flying out to San Francisco to interview at Facebook. So this was at it was in Indianapolis, I believe. That's where it was. Yep. Yeah, and so we met then, chatted a little bit about how we were interested in the product side of writing and content strategy, and then we just sort of kept running into each other at conferences and on the web, and started talking about how we needed to talk more about what was happening in this space with products in particular, and how content strategy is different when you apply it to software versus a website. So we actually developed a workshop together that we've been teaching, taught it a few times at conferences like Confab, and the book kind of grew out of that activity.
It's
doing
funny.
A workshop together.
I feel like a lot of books kind of lead to workshops. Like you have somebody writes a book, turns into a workshop. We kind of went the opposite direction, which was
you did the workshop
which
and
was
then
fun.
you wrote the book.
Yeah.
Don't you feel like there's so many things. So I've been in the field of UX for a long time, and there's so many different elements of the field of user experience that seem to go through these pendulum swings, where people realize, oh, that's really important, and then they forget it's important, and then they remember that it's important. Not individual people, but like the industry in general. And it seems to me that this whole idea of content and copy and words and what you say and how much you say and how you say it has kind of gone through those different cycles. I mean, I remember a long time ago when there were there were several consultants making quite good money helping people design and write online help systems, which Guthrie, do you even know what that means?
Wait, say it again.
If I said to you, yes, I worked with American Express as a consultant, helping them write their online help systems.
Oh yeah, I know what that means.
You do?
Yeah, I'd be wrong.
Oh,
but...
what do you think it means? I'd like to take a guess.
So, for those of you who may or may not know, I'm 30, so I am young, but I'm also old. I'm not 17.
Yeah.
I have been on an intranet. I know what an intranet is. So
Okay.
when you say online help systems,
yeah,
just say okay, boomer.
an online help system, I am going to imagine, is you're a deployee at a company and you have a problem and you need to fix it, and so there's a repository in your intranet that allows you to find information and help yourself or others.
So not accurate.
I knew I'd be wrong, but it sounds
you got
good.
that one wrong.
It sounds good.
You just got that one wrong. So, and I know there are some people out there listening who might know what this is. So an online help system was you had software that you were using for whatever. And you were using this software, and it was very possible that it was not particularly usable. And you couldn't figure out what you were supposed to do on this screen and what code you were supposed to enter or what was going on. And so you would originally, the software would come with a printed physical manual about the size of your new book, Guthrie, because Guthrie's just came out with a book called I Love You Now, Read This Book. It's about human decision-making and behavioral economics. And it is a huge book. It's like, how many pages are in that thing?
It's under 500 pages.
Under 500, but just barely.
Wow.
So your software used to arrive with a big manual. And so if you had a problem with your software, you could look up what to do in the book. And then things got so advanced that instead of a manual, you could click a help button on your screen.
Well, I remember the
manual.
CD
Yeah.
that came with products, and you put the little CD in, and it had an enormous PDF with all the. Yeah. It's just a manual.
Yeah, this was more you could do contextual help. Anyway, we can move on from that. I'm just saying, why did I bring that up? Oh,
can I play my fail horn?
What?
You know how on like the radio show they have like the sound box? I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So back during that time frame, which of course I'm not old enough to personally have experienced, but I heard about. No, actually, I did experience this. There was a lot of interest in how you wrote things. How did you word things? There was a lot of interest in error messaging. There was a lot of interest in how you wrote instructions or explained things. And then it seemed like it kind of was ignored for a while and wasn't that important. And then the whole website thing came out, which you guys have mentioned, and then everyone was interested in whatever it was you were putting on your website to describe your product or services or marketing copy. But then that did, I think, separate out from UX. And so now, the UX people didn't, and many of them don't necessarily think that that's really about them, right? They're relying on someone else is going to give them the words.
Yeah.
And they might be interested, maybe they're interested in the instructions at the top of the form, what they call the labels, or, the instruction in the middle of the form. But even that, I think, sometimes does not get a lot of attention. And I know that Guthrie and I, we've been moving towards doing a lot of behavioral science work and applying behavioral science and behavioral economics to design. So that's kind of a lot of what we focus on these days. But we still do. I mean, we're in the middle of a project where we're evaluating, a series of screens and pages. And in that evaluation, we do and will be looking at wording. Because to me, it's just, it's part of it. Obviously, to me, it's obvious. You're talking about, is this page or screen usable? Is it going to encourage people to take action? Do they understand what to do with it? Are they going to want to do what you're hoping they're going to do? And I don't know how you can possibly say that, the words written on the page don't have anything to do with it. But I think you're right that a lot of people just don't think about it in as much depth as you guys definitely have in the book. And I'm so excited to have found you guys, because I'll be honest with you, we get clients who ask us things like, do you guys teach a workshop on writing and writing in UX? And our answer is no. And now I know who to send these people to, because you guys do teach the workshop. So I have a couple questions about, can I ask a couple questions from the book?
Hold on.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, you
what?
can't.
Absolutely,
I mean, you
I
can, but not until I ask you.
But what?
Can we get the, for the audience, could we get like the 30-second elevator pitch?
For the book?
Yeah, just what's it about? So you're at the New Year's party, and the person saunters up. Hey, so what do you guys do?
And you say, we just published a book.
Oh, that's amazing. What?
What's it? It's a call.
What's it about?
Writing,
is it like a sort of a 18th century British Little Women type?
Yeah. They call those costumes.
It's a sci-fi epic.
Okay.
A space opera.
Right?
Okay.
So what would you say, really?
Now, this book is just basically answering or just putting forth the thesis that the process of writing is and should be part of the design process for digital experience or software. So all the same things that apply to digital design, like testing and iteration and strategy and research, can all and should all be applied to the words in the interface as well, because they are just inextricable from each other. Like a design without words is just a big jumble of shapes and colors and elements, and just a bunch of words without design is a chatbot. So this book is just kind of like giving the reader not only some tools to just write responsible words in a digital experience, but then also just giving them the rhetoric to talk about it, right? Like if you're trying to, justify to your boss why you need to have a UX writer or a writing team or a better writing practice, this book is kind of arming you with those words.
Now,
did I hit that, Michael?
Yeah, Michael, do you have
anything
anything you want to change?
Yeah.
He's like, okay, sounds good. Yeah,
Perfect.
go with that.
Yeah.
So, all right. But having said that, I have to say there's more to this than maybe some people think. Because I think sometimes people think, okay, yeah, I'm going to make sure that my writing is clear I'm going to follow all the guidelines for writing simply and clearly. But you guys get into some much more nuanced stuff. So can I now, Guthrie, can I ask my questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. He'll allow it. So just, Andy and Michael, Guthrie's a licensed attorney in the state of Illinois, joke. And that was a legal joke.
Nice.
He'll allow it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So,
objection.
Now we're in a lot of trouble.
Sustained.
All right. So, I just want to get, so I don't even know if it's questions. I just like things I found in the book that I thought were especially interesting. So you have this whole section on tone and voice. And I really love the way you talk about, tone and voice and the difference between tone and voice and what to do all that with all that. So can you just talk for a minute about, okay, what's tone, what's voice? Why should I care about those things?
Sure. I think a lot of times people conflate those two things. They'll say tone of voice, or they'll talk about voice and tone in one, just talking about maybe like kind of the personality and the style that you infuse your writing with. But I think that they're super interrelated, but I definitely think they're different things. Voice is your personality, right? Like, I'm Andy. This is the way that I talk, and these are my values, and I will sometimes, use particular words to mean, like, when I'm trying to, talk about certain things. But the tone of my voice changes depending on who I'm talking to. So, like, the way that I talk to you all here on this podcast is different than the way that I talk to my mother, which is different than the way I talk to my college roommate, which is different than the way I talk to Michael. Those are ways that I kind of like change the tone of my voice depending on the situation. If I need to be really, really clear about something, or if I want to be really encouraging or positive, or sometimes I just need a vent to be negative. So I kind of switch up while kind of keeping that same personality, that same voice. And so we talk about how to like put that to use in product. So sometimes you need to really encourage somebody through a particular flow, or be really motivate them to like try a new feature, or to finish a payment or whatever. And we kind of give some strategies to like figure out how to be really consistent and build profiles of tone that you can just kind of call on when you need to. And then also like, give you ways to just make sure you have a kind of a consistent voice while you're doing it. Like, especially when you have like a large team of people writing and making kind of their own individual decisions. So it just kind of, each chapter just kind of breaks down the difference between those two words, which I think are kind of often confused for each other.
Yeah, like you have like all right. So let me ask you, because you have one example, and another reason I think the book is so well done is you're talking about these concepts and ideas and what they are and why they're important, and then you have lots and lots of examples, which really helps. So I'm looking at this one page where you've got a bunch of different types of messages all around having someone reset their password, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I'm looking at the printout and I don't have a page number on it, so I can't help you with that. Sorry. But you have like it says you have different wordings. Like one is called the encouraging wording, another is informational, another is trustworthy, another is sympathetic. And so, the encouraging one says, hi, Andy, let's get your password reset. It's been 90 days since you last updated it. Go ahead and pick a new one that's 12 characters or more and includes letters and numbers, and then use it to log in again, right? And then you have the informational one. I won't read them all, but the informational one says your password is 90 days old and has expired. Create a new one and sign back in, right? So these are, and one can imagine, the trustworthy is different, the sympathetic is different. Yeah. So those 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you would call would those all be different tones?
Yeah, those all kind of fit within different sort of profiles of tone. And they might be more applicable to in certain situations. I think that example, I kind of went to an extreme with some of them.
Yeah, you did it on purpose.
That first one I read, yeah.
Yeah, you said sympathetic is, not the right fit. Encouraging seems a bit overboard, right? Yeah. And so what you're saying is which of these you would use, and there's the trustworthy one and there's a sympathetic one, would depend on the situation and the audience. Is that?
For sure, yeah. The kind of the scenario, is this happening in a little error message dialogue that's popping up, or is this happening as just a piece of microcopy that sits above the interface, or is this happening in a like a push notification? You really have to think about the context through which a user might read this. And then also really think about the user state of mind as well. Like, are they being interrupted from like in a really important workflow? Are you just like, popping this up and kind of shoving it in front of them? Or is it something where they've gone into settings and they've gone down to password and they've gone, into change the password where you really know that they're here to do this? I think that makes a big difference in kind of like what tone you choose as well.
So are you saying that let's say that I work for, a large company. I mean, Guthrie and I have done work, in fact, we had a project a couple of years ago in which we were reviewing, now I would say we were reviewing tone, probably tone and voice, although back when we were doing the work, I didn't know to use that terminology. But we were reviewing for this large insurance company, right? The tone and the voice they were using for all kinds of copy and messaging, and making suggestions to them about changes based on their audience and their goals and what they were trying to get across in as their brand values, really. And so in a situation like that, where you have multiple people are going to be writing multiple things, right? So tell me about how you would suggest a large organization, are there things they can do besides getting, they can get everyone trained in your workshop, which would be a great idea. But should they have, standards? Should they have a palette that they're working from, where they can have conversations like, okay, for this, let's use an informational tone, and then everybody kind of, knows what that means or can look up what that means? Like, how would you use this as a strategy in a large company when you're dealing with multiple authors?
Well, I think there are a lot of different approaches you can use, and I always encourage people to find what works for their situation. So, for example, one big trend that a lot of companies are using right now is to have a design system, and we talk a bit about these in the book. Mm-hmm. And the design system was initially meant to be like a pattern library of code that you could use to, put different design elements out there within a web app or something. And you would just have this centralized repository where you could have consistent looking and feeling components to pull from. But a lot of companies are now using those design systems as a way to get everyone on the same page in terms of what the product's voice should be and how tone should change in different situations. So one example we use in the book, and it's a great one, is Shopify's Polaris design system. And you can find that publicly on the web. They actually have it so the public can see. And they have a lot of information in there for people who are doing writing in their experience. So that's one, way that they've done it. But there are a lot of different ways you can do it too. You could, if people are heavily relying on the style guide, whether it's like an internal style guide that writers have, that could be a good way to like make some adjustments there or add some information to it. Some teams are just working off of like their own standards. Maybe you're looking at an internal wiki or something. So I always encourage people to be flexible. There's no one right answer, but having the conversation and writing it down somewhere is really important. That's the key step.
Mm-hmm.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is great and all. But there are a lot of I think one of the reasons that people have maybe the not the best opinion of a lot of companies is because the relationship with them is not good, because a lot of the tone of things is not good, and it doesn't feel like the company cares about the person at all. And I have in front of me here a real letter that was sent to a real person. That paper. Okay.
Yeah.
Give me the can I get like a random name, because I don't want to use the
Jim.
Can I get a last name?
Langford. Jim Langford.
Okay, I apologize to Jim Langford if Jim is actually there
probably
exists.
is a Jim Langford, but whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so I have the unfortunate time of telling you that Jim has passed away.
Okay.
And this is about 10 days or so, maybe 2 weeks after Jim has passed. To the estate of Jim Langford, in all capital letters. Medicare told us about the death of Jim Langford, in all capital letters. Please accept our condolences. Jim Langford's, all capital letters, coverage in this prescription plan has ended as of 12/1/2000, we'll just say 19. If plan premiums were paid for any month after December of that month, we will issue a refund to the estate within 30 days of this letter. If the Medicare Part D premium was being deducted from Jim Langford's Social Security benefit, please allow up to 3 months for us to process a refund. If the estate has not received a refund from Social Security within 3 months of this letter, a representative of the state should contact us at this phone number. If this information is wrong, please contact your Social Security office. There's a lot of phone numbers with times and stuff. Thank you, comma, and then the name of the company. So what are your thoughts about? I'd like to hear your thoughts about this letter.
I don't know. It's very, it's very business-like. The tone of it isn't. It doesn't seem like there was a lot of research done before, before writing and sending that out. Like I think some of it just feels super corporate because clearly it's a form letter. The name is in all caps. There hasn't been a lot of good sort of thought about the formatting as well as the content. So it's hard. It's hard to speak to things like form letters that are sent out because that's all something that just kind of happens at once, right? Like I feel like interactive experiences, you can take a little bit more care to make sure it's a little bit more situational, it's a little bit more nonlinear, and presumably, hopefully, somebody is thinking about the pain or the anguish that somebody is feeling by the death of somebody they may be close to. So yeah, it's hard to speak a little bit to that, only that it sounds a little disingenuous, and there's ways that somebody can try to capture a little bit more conversational of a tone, but while still getting the information you're trying to get across out there, right? So yeah,
it's really it is amazing. Well, I only bring it up because we talk about micro moments sometimes, which is right. There's the macro design of the layout and all that stuff, which is important. But when you have a relationship with a customer or whoever it is those small little moments that sort of define the relationship. Mm-hmm. And to start with, Medicare told us about the death of this person in all capital letters. Please accept our condolences. Yeah. Right. Like, not only do I not believe that you are sad about this in any way, shape, or form, like it really, I've talked to the person who received this letter, and it was not a pleasant experience because it feels really disingenuous. It would have been a lot better had they not tried to pretend to care, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's almost like an uncanny valley. And clearly, I'm not saying that any thought was really put into this, but I think these things happen a lot.
Yeah, and honestly, I hope that one of the things that that we want to push forward to other people working in the field, especially with digital experiences, is that you have to be aware that not every moment in someone's life is going to be really happy and cheerful. And in digital experiences, sometimes those things can slip in unintentionally. So like one example that came up recently, I was working with an insurance company on a chatbot, and someone suggested that we end every interaction with "have a great day," which if you're working with an insurance company, you could have a number of reasons that someone is chatting with you. You could have someone was in a car accident, someone lost their home, maybe someone lost a loved one even, so those moments that
life
seem
insurance.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are all kinds of, exactly. So that was a relevant use case. But the thing is, these things can seem pretty innocuous in the digital space. The people who wrote this letter had the advantage even of knowing the situation they were writing for, and it still came off poorly, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas in digital experiences, sometimes the people writing the messages don't even take the time to look at all the different scenarios someone could be going through and write in a way that accommodates those.
Yeah, I think it's really important to realize that sometimes you think you're being friendly and nice and optimistic and upbeat, but that is not always a great way to relate to someone. If they're in Guthrie reminds me a little bit of, the framing and regulatory fit. I mean, if that's not the space they're in, then that message is really, the tone of that message is really going to be jarring.
Yeah. Yeah. The other, it's also, the other example that I think I like to use, we haven't put this, we need to put it in our slide deck too. Is Facebook, who I noticed you said you used to work for. I don't know how, I could totally see if you're just writing the copy, right? You don't know the context in which it's going to be displayed. And so it must be a really hard problem to solve. So let me give you an example. I know someone whose mother had passed, but they never marked on Facebook that she had passed. They just, they didn't touch her Facebook profile. So on her birthday, Facebook sent them a message being like, hey, celebrate your friendship with so-and-so, because all Facebook knows is that you guys are Facebook friends. And then has like a bunch of photos of them while she was sick and had cancer and all that stuff. And so obviously, it's like a horrible experience. And the copy is like, hey, remember all the fun times you had with, but like the person who wrote that could have no idea. And it must be a really difficult problem to solve because, Facebook doesn't know. It's just plugging and playing sort of the code. So when it comes to those digital experiences, I don't know. Did you have any advice on how to know what tone to pick? Or it's a tough problem.
Have you all read Design for Real Life by Sarah Wachter-Bechter and Eric Meyer?
No.
It's a really, really good book. It's written like it came out in a book apart, part of their series. And there's a story that Eric Meyer tells in there. He's a web developer and a really great writer. And when his daughter was 6 years old, she died because she had, I think, a type of cancer. And that exact same thing happened to him, right? Mm-hmm. Like that year he posted a lot of updates about his daughter and talked a lot about her condition to his friends on Facebook. And she Yeah. So Facebook as a system, as an algorithm, knew that she was featured in a lot of his posting, that that year. And so at the end of the year, it showed that hey, look back at all the happy times you had with what's her name, with your daughter, and big cover photo was just a picture of her, and that just hit him right in the gut. Yeah. So. A lot of the book, like a big thesis of that book is essentially just design for the stress cases. First of all, your 6-year-old daughter dying is not a very common occurrence. So when it lands on the plate of somebody running QE or somebody who's trying to think about how to how robust to build the system, that might be oh, that's an edge case. Let's not worry about that. And one of the things that this book has said is it's not, an edge case implies that there is an outer limit to what you care about in a user's life. So think of it more like a stress case. And you know what? In fact, take extra care to design for the stress cases, because those are going to be the situations that need your high touch the most. And so I think that's a perfect example of that in action, right? Facebook as an algorithm, as a system, might not know that somebody you're connected to has died or is still alive, but in doing so, don't assume that they're still alive. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good lesson to kind of be had there, especially for a system that is operating at that scale. 2.2 billion users at Facebook. That's right. That's quite a lot. So. Yeah. Anything to add to that, Michael?
Yeah, I think asking questions is a really good tactic. You ask how can people do this effectively? How can they design for good situations or good experiences in these situations? And I think asking questions is really important, and shining a light on the user journey and all the things that someone could be going through, because I think a lot of times people just want to think about the happier moments. They want to think about that happy path, as we call it. So shining a light on those things is really important, and people start to recognize the responsibility across the team that everyone has in those moments. Yeah.
So, okay, let me, I'm going to ask another question, totally different question. Well, kind of different. I'd like to, I have a couple questions that really kind of dig into maybe the UX aspects of words. I love the example. You have an example in your book about a chatbot and how the wording of the initial chat, how the chatbot starts might confuse the user about, there's a mismatch between. I'll just give an example. So this is a support chatbot, and in your example, the chatbot says, "Hi, I'm a chatbot. How can I help you?" And the person writes in, "Hi," right? Because you said hi, and the person wrote back, "Hi." And then the chatbot writes back, "Sorry, I didn't catch that. What do you need help with?" And your point here is that the chatbot was expecting the user to describe their issue, but it was so conversational when it started that the human, the user, thought, okay, we're starting the conversation. And I know, whether it's a chatbot or a chat with a human, I know in my experience, sometimes, depending on my mood, when the person says, "Hi, how can I help you?" I write back with "Hi." It's like you're having a conversation. You say hello, and then they say hello, you say hello, and then you get into what the issue is. And in this case, because it's a chatbot, it just automatically didn't understand "hi" as an issue, right? And then was essentially saying right from the beginning, "Okay, I don't understand what you're saying," right? And I just thought that was such a great example of, just watching out for your wording, because if you start with "Hi, I'm a chatbot," it's a very high probability the person's going to say hi.
Yeah. I think that was in a section where we were talking about metaphor, and I think a thread throughout the book that we really want to drive home is that there are no simple answers to some of these design problems where it can feel like, if I just know the best practice and the right way to do it, we'll be good. And I think that's kind of how writing has been treated for a long time. But what we try to illustrate are some situations where, things are hard to deal with. So, we talked in that section about metaphor and how metaphor is really popular. And I think
didn't one of you say you studied with Lakoff?
One of our interviewees, so John Sato, he's now a designer at Dropbox, but he was a product writer there. He studied under Lakoff.
Yeah, Lakoff stuff. Have you read any of his material?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, he's that's really interesting stuff on
so good
on metaphor. Yeah.
So in the case you're mentioning, the metaphor of the chatbot and of the conversation was so powerful that the user did something that the designers didn't want. And so that's the thing. It's just you have to be really careful about how you use all these tools in your toolkit. It can seem like a really good idea to get really conversational with the chatbot, but a different greeting that doesn't cause the user to respond with hello might have been much more effective in that scenario.
So do you think how much do you think people are testing either before implementation or even after implementation, testing things like this and the wording and the responses. And then, if they didn't catch it beforehand, which we hope that they would, that they're at least looking at the data or actively testing so they can adjust as they go along. Do you think wording is getting tested very much?
Yeah, I've done a lot of work in the conversation design space, and I think that space does a lot of analysis of transcripts and things like that, where in a situation like that, they would catch it pretty quickly. I think that, however, like that usually happens, in my experience, it happens like when things are pushed out in development or in production, things like that. So I think we're seeing more and more people start to test the language in particular before they get there, which is a really positive trend. It's really important. But that I feel like that's not a really big part of a lot of the practice of a lot of the people we talk with, a lot of the companies we've worked with. So that I hope that happens more and more, because every time I've done it, it's been really beneficial.
Yeah.
I don't know, Andy, what's your experience been?
I've actually never worked really on a chatbot project, so I don't have a lot of experience with that. As far as interface language goes, I know that some companies have a pretty big culture of testing, and some don't. I definitely, like, when I worked at Facebook, we would write something like pretty what am I trying to say, like high touch or important, we would definitely spend some time and test it. I think something I wrote, like, we tested at some point, like, 11 different variants of it, which was maybe a little overboard, but still you got a lot of really good insight from something like that. So, Adobe, our products are kind of all over the board. We have, different products of different ages built on different systems. So some have a really good kind of like, culture of testing messages and testing content, and some products don't. But it's definitely whenever I can get away with it, I fully embrace it, because you'll get really good insights from that.
Yeah, we've seen a trend, Guthrie and I, or I don't know if it just happens to be with, I don't know why we're seeing this, but with some of our projects recently, our clients think that if you are testing with other design colleagues or employees at the company, that counts as testing, like testing with the actual target audience or testing with actual users or customers is not really necessary. We've been kind of like, kind of appalled. I mean, it's like, what? You think what? Yeah, because we always ask about testing, and then they go, oh yeah, we tested this. We took three people from the such and such department, and we did user testing with them. And I'm like,
I mean, it's certainly not ideal or really what you want to be, who you want to be testing with. I still think is better than nothing because you can still reveal some things that are just like, straight up not usable that way. But for sure, if you have any capacity to talk to people outside of your little world, like you should totally do that.
All right, here's another one I have for you, another kind of detailed thing. You talk, there's a place in the book where you're talking about and I hope I'm not annoying you with pulling out things from the book.
No, it's great.
I know sometimes I've had people say, on page 219, you say this. I'm like, really? I got to go get a book. So you talk about just things like, I mean, this seems so small, but to me, I think it's important. So you've got, somewhere in your instructions or whatever, you tell people to click on this or tap this or press this, and you say, well, yeah, but, it might be a touch interface. And so they're not, clicking with their mouse, right? Mm-hmm. And so trying to use device agnostic is the phrase you use, device agnostic words like choose, select, and view.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big part of, I think you probably saw that in the accessibility and inclusivity chapter. Mm-hmm. I think, that's totally the case. Like if you don't have a very personalized interface, if you have maybe like both a mobile and a desktop kind of layout, device agnostic language is the best way to go. Because if if you're tapping and you see something that says click, like it can be a little jarring. But I think what it's really good for are people who are using screen readers, right? Like people who maybe have visual impairments or reasons why they can't, like use the interface in a traditional way. So I think a big one that just kind of blew my mind wide open when I first encountered it was, use chronological language, not temporal language. Like don't say like, oh, hey, click that blue box to the left, because somebody using screen readers like has no concept of that being to the left. So if it's not like, above or below or to the left or to the right or the blue box or whatever, instead saying, next do this and next do this and after, like finally do that. That's a little bit more accessible and a little bit easier to parse for everybody.
Yeah. And all right. And then another thing I wanted to bring up is your section on error messages, which the whole idea of how to handle error messages has been a favorite topic of mine for a very long time. But I thought I've never seen it described quite this way, and I really like the way you do it. You've done it here, because you talk about 3 principles for using words to design error states. One is, of course, avoid, right? But you say avoid, explain, resolve, and I love those 3 words to describe it. And I think the way I've been describing it over the years is not as succinct as this. So avoid, find ways to help your user without showing them an error. So if you can avoid an error message needing to be there at all, that's the way to go. And if you can't, then explain, tell your users what's going on and what went wrong, and then resolve, provide a solution to the problem that the user is facing. But I just think those 3 words, avoid, explain, resolve, is so clear, and I really appreciated your writing that way and choosing those words, because to me there's an example of principles that I've been talking about for a long time, and yet I never came up with those 3 succinct words to explain it.
Yeah, and I don't know, certainly those ideas aren't completely original. Like you may notice they're similar to what Nielsen wrote about, in terms of error prevention. But I think what's helped me with my teams is just reframing the whole idea of an error as something that is an opportunity to help users accomplish a task, rather than a moment where we have to like recover from the failure of the system. So that's why avoiding them is so important, because if you can find a way through design to actually, keep that error from ever occurring in the first place, that's the best kind of error message, one that doesn't exist at all. And so that's why we want writers to start thinking more like designers, because I think early in my career, I would get a request to write an error message, and I would just write it. And now in my career, if I have to do something like that, I will do a lot more exploration and ask a lot more questions and work with my team to try to see if we can find other ways to address the problem.
Now Michael can be a huger pain in the butt. Asked to do a simple task.
Exactly. But I think everyone should be, like that's just part of being effective in this field. Like you should be able to ask those questions. And that's really important that you feel the confidence like that. Even though you're the writer and you've been asked to write this error message, it's okay to ask why. And it's okay to ask, are there other ways we can help people accomplish this task?
Absolutely.
I have I haven't done this in a while, Guthrie. I might have to resurrect it. We've for a while, and I do have an entire collection of error messages, and when you put them in a presentation in the right place, in the right order, and you have a good delivery, you can get a big laugh out of them, because some of them are so absurd. But yeah, I do. I collect error messages. So if you anyone listening, if you have some good ones, send me screenshots. I love to get those.
I have a pretty good collection of specifically just Adobe error messages.
Oh, really?
There's some pretty good ones in that in that list.
Good. Yeah. So what would you say is there anything in your book or in your workshops that you think, I don't know, is like controversial, or the thing people really, really have a hard time with, like they just, say, no, I don't tell me that. I don't want to do that, or that's going to be too hard, or.
Do you want to talk about critique, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I wasn't thinking of critique. I think I was thinking of the one, kind of the approach to getting involved in teams and contributing to them. So that's the one I'm thinking of right away. And so I think like there's kind of an attitude in the world of design that like, if I have a design job, like say I'm a UX writer, I'm a UX designer, product designer, whatever the title is, people should listen to me because I'm the designer, and people should do what I say. And if people push back at all, then that's a bad thing because I'm the designer and I know what to do. And I haven't really found that to be the case at all in my career, and I don't think that's an effective way to work with teams. So we write about how the best way to make change happen on a team is to come alongside them and try to meet their goals and really help them achieve what they want to achieve and do some things for them first before you really try to change the world, right? So I think like you can read books like ours and feel like you should apply everything right away. And I don't think that's realistic. I think people who have that mentality get burned out pretty quick because it can be just exhausting. I think you have to start earning trust and coming alongside people and helping them solve some problems and get some success. And then you'll be able to help start change the way they're working.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what was the critique idea that?
Oh, that was there's a really good section of the book just about like how, when you get a group of writers, sometimes of writers and designers together, there's a way that you can just kind of like show your work and get feedback and give feedback in a very, in a productive way, not in a critical way. And we really talk about like the difference between like critique and criticism. So I was thinking from your prompt, sometimes making yourself vulnerable, especially at work, to kind of put your work out there and get other eyes on it can be really hard. So there's a chapter that gives a really good kind of like framework and approach to doing that. Like, allowing the person being critiqued to kind of like scope the type of feedback that they're looking for is one way. And then another one is, kind of make sure that you're setting your feedback in, you're kind of couching it in observations and facts instead of saying like, I don't like this, and then not really providing any rationale, which happens surprisingly often. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I was thinking of. But I mean, honestly, that ties directly into what Michael was talking about, like, being part of a team for sure.
It is related. And I think, when I've done a lot of mentoring of UX people, and I think what also ties into this is the idea that, well, a couple of things. One is that if you take the point of view that being successful in this work, whether it's, helping to influence the writing so that the writing is clearer and better for the target audience, or whether it has to do with some changes in the something in the UX design to make the product better. If you take the point of view of ask yourself, is there anything about this product that is at all improved or more usable for the people who are going to use it? Anything, any small thing that is better because I was part of the team, and I was able to, have some influence. If there's anything, then you were successful. I think sometimes design people, whether it's visual design or UX design or writing design, they're so passionate about what they do but they feel if the team doesn't do everything they said or almost everything, then they weren't successful. And it's like, no, you are part of a team. There's all kinds of things going on and all kinds of people, and you don't get to make all the decisions, and you probably wouldn't want that anyway. So any influence you had means you were successful. And I think if you take that point of view, a couple of things happen. One is, I think it maybe frees you up to make more suggestions, because it's not like everyone is a critical one. I think it helps prevent you from burning out. I think a lot of reasons that people burn out from design is because they feel that it's not working. I'm not successful. They're not listening to me. And so if you just kind of ease up on that and see your role as, I think one of you mentioned it earlier, as, I'm going to point things out. That's my job, and I'll make suggestions and help you out here. And, that's what I do. But you don't have to do everything. I'm just going to point it out. I think that can be really helpful for everybody. And then I think the other thing, that you just mentioned is really important. I think that people become more able to listen to a critique if they are also better able to communicate when they are critiquing. And I think doing it as not, my opinion is, or I don't like this, or I don't think you should have done that. But I always like to teach people, one of the things we teach is we teach the science behind all of this. So, research shows that, or as you were talking about with accessibility, right? The screen reader is going to read it this way. So therefore it might be better for us to do this. And so that when you're giving the idea, it's not your personal opinion. It's based on, other factors. And I think if you practice doing that, not only do you become more influential, but then I think it means you become more open to hearing critiques from other people too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I've so enjoyed the book, and I was just reading the advanced copy, so now I'm going to get the real copy, and I'm just so appreciative of your writing it, and I can imagine that writing a book about writing is even more daunting than writing a book about something else.
It definitely got meta. Like one really interesting challenge we had was, we're writing a book that's in part about about voice and about like finding a singular, consistent voice when you have a team of writers. And sure enough, we had two people with distinct voices trying to write a book about it. So we definitely made sure to we actually went through some of the voice alignment exercises we list in the book specifically for the book. Yeah. And so that was definitely a fun challenge. And when we put this through our editor at Rosenfeld Media, one of the things we had for her was, one of the things we asked was like, hey, like, we really don't want you to be able to tell who wrote what chapter. So
she was kind of a therapist for us.
For sure.
Marta Justak, she's a saint.
Yeah.
All right. So everyone listening, the book is called Writing is Design, correct? I have it right?
Writing is Designing, yeah.
Oh, see, I had it wrong. Writing is Designing just came out from Rosenfeld Media. Available everywhere one usually gets their books, I assume.
Yeah.
You can buy it on Amazon and so on.
You can get it on Amazon, but of course, you're supporting independent publishers if you buy it from the Rosenfeld Media website.
Rosenfeld, right. So we'll put a link to the Rosenfeld up at the when we post the podcast episode. And this is by Michael Metz and Andy Welfle.
Yes, you got it.
And if anyone wants to get hold of you guys, or if, for instance, they might be interested in a workshop or something, what's the best way to reach you?
We have a website, writingisdesigning.com.
Okay.
And you'll be able to find information on the book, sign up for our newsletter there, and we have, links to both of, where you can find us on the internet as well for both of us.
Great. I'll include that too in the.
You can get to my TikTok page there.
Okay.
I don't have a TikTok.
All right. Thanks, guys, for coming on.
Thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.